Hey, Satanico here once again for God Loves Comics. And I've got this box that I have already cut open to remove the tedium of that aspect of the unboxing. And I'm just going to go into one little run of comics that I purchased. I have about 5 or 6 other boxes here that I will open in a separate video because they at least are somewhat more thematically similar. This is just one title that I have here, and you can see I have this stack of comics right here. I know basically what comics they are, but I haven't seen them in a long time. This is just, this was purely a purchase of nostalgia, and not particularly valuable. I've seen these comics on eBay, and they're usually about $5 or $6 a piece, depending on the condition. These are all considered to be very good to fine. Hopefully most of them are in fine. But this was 8 comics, supposedly, and it cost me about $30 from my comic shop. So they're not a purchase that I'm expecting to ever accrue any value. They're purely nostalgia, and even in retrospect, after purchasing them, I was thinking, you know, I should have just bought the collection. Even though it was only $30, I could have just bought a nice collection if I wanted to see the art and the stories again. I rarely actually go back and read comics that I grew up with anymore. I just don't have an interest, but I do look at the art. So let's get right to it. And the title is The Secret Society of Supervillains, an incredibly fun series, very short-lived, but I kind of associated the series with Rich Buckler. I was thinking Rich Buckler was the artist I remember doing this the most, but in fact that was not the case. Actually, a lot of the early issues, well, there weren't very many issues anyway. There were 15 total before it was canceled, and I've only got 8 here. And then there was a great super special, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the early issues were done by Ernie Chan, who's a really terrific artist. I mostly associate him with his work with John Buscema on Conan, but he did a lot of work on Batman and sundry DC titles and Marvel titles as well. Sometimes under his other name, Ernie Chua. But either way, Ernie Chan, just a really solid professional. Actually better than solid. I mean, some of his stuff is pretty spectacular, but a really good artist. This cover is by Dick Giordano, who was ubiquitous through DC for decades. And who else did this cover? Dick Giordano and Terry Austin, yeah, which is kind of surprising. You don't really think of Terry Austin being on a title like this or inking Dick Giordano. But this was, let's see, number 2, and here's a brief synopsis of number 2 as you're looking at the cover. Captain Comet, who was a hero circa the 1950s, mistakes Green Lantern for a bad guy. Of course, that always happens. And when he returns to Earth, he helps Gorilla Grodd and Hijack defeat Green Lantern. This includes an appearance by Darkseid's lackey Mantis, which I remember being pretty cool. And it's scripted by Jerry Conway, David Anthony Kraft. Pencils interior are from Pablo Marcos and Bob Smith. A pretty utilitarian but reasonably good team. And then here's number 3. And that is a cover by Ernie Chan. And this one, Darkseid, the ruler of Apocalypse, reveals that he created the secret society to replace the inefficient Inter-Gang. The society battles Mantis. So, they put a lot of, obviously, I think that's Mantis right there. They put all of these villains in, and it's an incredibly fun concept. I've gone back and thought about it. I'm not the type who really cares or, you know, ponders, oh, I wish DC would make this movie or Marvel would make this movie. I'm not really thinking about that. A lot of the movies I'm not even interested in seeing anymore. But in this case, I was just thinking, by comparison to something like Suicide Squad, which I actually did see. I saw just desperately wanting to see a big, dumb popcorn movie that I thought would be fun. I thought Harley Quinn would be fun. She was, the movie was just a hot pile of garbage. It was just terrible. And I mean, you know, the opening was just kind of standard Hollywood fare. It was fine, and then it just went off into just total crap. And so instead, I mean, and it also had a lot of lame characters. Let's face it. And this has its fair share as well. I mean, it still has, you know, some pretty wacky sort of villains, some marginal villains. But, I mean, I actually think this would be a much better movie than Suicide Squad, to be honest. But everything is relative, and it wouldn't make a better movie than Suicide Squad if it was directed by the same person that did Suicide Squad, the same screenwriter, same producer, and then it would still be a pile of shit. But in terms of characters, I think if you can get Gorilla Grodd or something, you know, a character like that, a villain like that in a DC movie, I think it would be a very entertaining step. I think it would be an amazing DC villain. And, you know, it might step on the toes. You know, the super intelligent gorilla thing might be a little bit too similar to what people are probably a little bit fatigued of the Planet of the Apes sort of thing. But then again, at the same time, those films have sort of made the CGI advancements to sort of pave the way for such a character. If you put it in a superhero context, I think it would probably be a lot of fun. But this series was a lot of fun. And this is Upside Down. That is number 4. Great cover. And you can see down here, Ernie Chan's signature. Maybe you can see it. From 1976. And let's see what the plot for that was. I'm just taking these plots from these little plot summaries from my comic shop, since I purchased the comics from there as well. The Wizard and Sinestro leave the society. Calabac battles Grodd. I suppose this is Calabac. I don't remember having this issue, and this looks like a guy from the Black Racer from New Gods, which I guess is a Kirby creation. Green Lantern battles Mantis, who boasts they will soon be more powerful than Darkseid. Doubtful. And the interior is Pablo Marcos and Ernie Chan and Vinnie Coletta. So, and let's see, are all these upside down? And this is number 6. So far, these look like they're in really nice condition. Of course, when they're in the bag, you can always be a little bit skeptical. Now, this cover, the first, I have 2, 3, 4. I didn't get issue 5 in this lot. And this is number 6, and this is actually by Rich Buckler and Vinnie Coletta. And not an issue I remember having, and looks fun. And Captain Comet and Black Canary, Green Arrow and Captain Comet strive to rescue 3 captains of a spaceship, of a boat, and of a football team from Captain Cold, Captain Stingery, and Captain Boomerang. Copperhead is sprung from jail by someone claiming that he is taking control of the society. So this is also done by the pencils are Rich Buckler, and the inks are by Bob Layton, and the cover by Buckler and Coletta. And Bob Layton, excellent inker and penciler in his own right, probably best known for his work on Iron Man. Rich Buckler, best known for almost everything. I always kind of viewed him as, was one of those artists who was sort of utilitarian. I would almost maybe compare him to like the DC's version of Sal Buscema, and that he did so much work, and it was very effective storytelling, but it was kind of utilitarian in the sense that it didn't it wasn't going to blow your socks off like Jack Kirby. It wasn't as stylized and, sinewy as Gil Kane. It wasn't, going to have the sort of flair of a Barry Windsor Smith or any of the major star artists that kind of stood out. Of course, Rich Buckler did tons and tons of work for Marvel as well. So, whereas Sal Buscema, I almost solely associate Sal and John Buscema with Marvel. but I think it's maybe a reasonable comparison to say Buckler was sort of a DC version of Sal Buscema in the sense that they were both incredible workhorse artists, very adroit storytellers, and probably very efficient, probably beloved by their editors because they seemed like they were guys who could always get the job done and were very fast workers, even if they were unspectacular at times. So this is number 7, really fun cover, and this looks like the trio, the 3 sinister sorcerers. Sinister enough to take down Superman. Pretty good. And this is again Buckler and Bob Layton. The cover is by Buckler and Joseph Rubinstein, another great inker. And let's see. Luthor's League of Supervillains. Lex Luthor battles Wizard and proclaims himself the new leader of the secret society. Luthor enlists Matter Master and Felix Faust to help him against Superman, who is in Japan filming a Superman movie. Okay? And that plot is by, the script is by Bob Rozakis. Bob Rozakis was known as the DC Answer Man. And as I said, these all covers, they all look nice. This one's kind of strange in the sense that you cannot see the price. And I can't tell if it's got it doesn't seem like if it's got any kind of color fading, it doesn't seem like any other aspect of the comic is got a sun shadow. But the 30 cents is very, very faint. I don't think even close up you can barely see it. As compared to this. You can see the 30 cent very clearly in red. I don't know if that was a production error or not. All of these look very nice condition. I would say all of them look like they're fine, which is nice. And maybe in another video, I'll crack them open and look at them. This is probably the best cover of the bunch. Well, one of the best. Maybe the best is coming up. And even though the one that's coming up is derivative of some other covers I've seen from the Silver Age and maybe even the Golden Age, but this is a really cool cover by Rich Buckler and Jack Abel. And really, I don't know, Gorilla Grodd I think is a really great character, great villain. So, and a lot of these other characters, of course, are pretty marginal, but are very fun in this context when they're just all teaming up. I'm surprised this comic didn't do better. That was number 8. This is number 9, maybe the best cover. I was a big fan of the Creeper, even though I didn't read that much Creeper. I always thought it was just a crazy sort of Steve Ditko design. It's just bizarre and fun. Guy with green hair, yellow skin, some kind of crazy fur fringe. And I really don't remember what the Creeper... I really have no memory of what his powers were, whether he's completely insane or not. None of that. Maybe I'll have to look at this and just take a look at his dialogue, which probably won't be good, but, you know. It's a great cover. There are a lot of sort of these... seems like Avengers had covers like this, but definitely a lot of Golden and Silver Age DCs that preceded this. There were some of these like face-off covers where classically you have two sides. You know, Rich Buckler was sometimes known to do some swipes and things. This isn't necessarily a swipe. This is just a very common sort of concept when you have this, you know, this number of characters sort of facing off. This is kind of the standard sort of layout that you would have, where you would have characters on one side, characters on the other side, and maybe the text right up the middle. I like the white, the white background, and I actually have this issue. I always liked the cover a lot. I always liked the issue a lot. It was always a lot of fun, but this issue I don't think I ever had was bagged and boarded, so it's got a lot of foxing, so it was nice to just get a replacement for that. And last but not least is number 12. As I said, this comic series went to number 15. Now, number 12 and some of the later issues are notable. let's see, when did they start? Okay, so Buckler obviously did number 9. Number 10 was by, strangely enough, the pencils on number 10 were by Dick Ayers. And then the cover was by Al Milgrom. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. They had, most of them had covers by Buckler, but then they had interior art by Mike Vosburgh. So what that tells me, Mike Vosburgh maybe has some fans, maybe he's a super nice guy, but I just don't remember him being a very good artist. If Rich Buckler was sort of a really solid, utilitarian, straightforward, efficient, reliable storytelling artist in the mainstream genre, Mike Vosburgh was several steps down from that. He was maybe utilitarian, but I just don't remember him having particularly good art style or anything particularly memorable. Characters always seemed a little just not to have any weight to them or any substance to them. But now I may look at those later issues and I may completely reverse ground on that. This issue actually has Vosburgh art, so let's take a quick look and see if I'm right or wrong. I may look at it and say, wow, I've really misremembered Mike Vosburgh. Not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that he was kind of an artist that you weren't too terribly excited to see come on to the scene, especially of a series that you liked. And looking at this, it's perfectly efficient. There's nothing, that's a perfectly decent splash page. It's not scintillating, but it's fine. Bob McLeod, very solid inker, so that helps. A less talented inker, and I think you would get significantly worse work. But seeing a page like that, I like, as I said, I like some of these villains, and the face here, not very good, but then there are a lot of other faces surrounding him. Sort of if you saw what Neil Adams typically did with layouts like that, there's a significant gap. But not everyone can be Neil Adams. Characters drawn a little bit goofy, but this isn't so bad. But this is probably, it's unfortunate, I guess I'm showing you this issue, which is probably the least interesting interior in terms of the art, when the other arts with Buckler are probably far better. This is a pretty nice ending page, and a nice cliffhanger. And this comic feels like it's in really nice shape. I would say this is definitely above fine, probably very close, probably very fine, closing in on a 9.0 near mint, unless there's something going on the back that I don't see, but nope. I don't think it matters particularly. Let's see, I have my comic shop open, so let's take a look and see how much some of these issues would be worth. This one, in fine to very fine, is only a $7 comic. At least that's what they've got it listed for. That doesn't even mean that anyone is buying it or it's being sold for that. Prior one is $4, $6. Well, number 9, with the cover I like, for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure, is for $11. So it's probably the high watermark. 8, 7 is also 11, 6, 8. Yeah, so nothing particularly, obviously all pretty sort of straightforward. Actually, number 3 is up in the $13, $13.25 for very fine. And this is probably a very fine. So that's a pretty good deal when you consider that I paid $30, and certainly number 2 is going to be probably, number 2 is 8. and number 1 is listed at just $12.50. So I wonder what number 3 has. I guess because of the Dark Side appearance. That can be the only reason that one is listed. I mean, they've got a listing for $13.25, and they have another one for $14, just 7.0. So no big deal. These are a very specific niche. Somebody has to be really looking for this, or there would have to be a TV show come out, or obviously a movie, maybe, but just the presence of Darkseid maybe gives them a little bit of cachet, but that wasn't the reason I purchased them. I don't expect these to gain any significant value. I just bought them for the nostalgia. And as I said, really fun series. The one issue that I would like to have, it'd be great to complete the whole run. There are only 15 issues. This is 8 of them already. But the one I would like to get another copy of, because I actually have a copy of it, is the Super Special, which there is, again, not very expensive. It's, it's a $7 or $8 comic for the most part, and fine, very fine. But it is 60 cents. It's about double sized, and it just has a really nice art and an appearance. Crucial sort of element to the plot is the appearance of Funky Flashman, who is the Stan Lee doppelganger that Jack Kirby created when he was very disgruntled with Marvel and took it out on Stan. And I guess the irony here is that, it's one thing I've heard people say, it's one thing if Jack wants to poke fun at Stan Lee, Jack Kirby of all people has that right. But for Jerry Conway, I think, started writing at Marvel when he was a teenager, much in the same way that Jim Shooter started writing for DC when he was a teenager. In fact, I think Jerry Conway saw a letter from Jim Shooter and then realized Jim Shooter was a teenager and was like, well, if he can write comics, I can write comics. And he's like maybe a year or 2 younger or something than Jim Shooter, and started writing about the same age. So Jerry Conway grew up with Marvel and had tons of work from Stan Lee. So the Funky Flashman character, by most accounts, really hurt Stan's feelings. And so to include that, and he was integral to the whole plot. Lots of drawings, and this character more than Kirby's. Kirby's was obviously Stan Lee, but didn't, it was drawn in a Kirby style, so he didn't really look that much like Stan. The one in Secret Society Super Special looks exactly like Stan did at that era. It's very flattering, actually, because he makes Stan look like a handsome guy, handsome hipster from the 70s and 80s that he was. But yeah, it's probably a bit of a low blow. But Funky is the leader of the Secret Society, and then I guess they turn on him. I don't remember I don't think they killed him, but it was certainly a coup. Probably a bloodless coup, but a coup nonetheless. I can't imagine how Funky could manage keeping Gorilla Grodd under wraps for very long. So anyway, that's the other one, and perhaps I'll show that one on camera eventually. But this is the Secret Society of Supervillains. I purchased it just for the fun, and hopefully you had fun just looking at these covers. There's not much else to say about it, but that's that. And I'll be back with another video. I've got a pretty big comic that I purchased, and then some other very nice Bronze Age masterpieces as well. So we'll be back very soon, and thanks for watching very much. And by the way, check out if you've watched this video and you're interested and you're on Facebook, you can join the Facebook comics group, Godlovescomics group, which has closing in on about 500 members. And I post a ton of covers there, and anyone can post any nice covers or any kind of comics art that they like, preferably good-looking comics art, but I think that's obviously highly subjective. But anyway, check that out, and see you next video, and thanks for watching. Bye.